Welcome to Redacted Reality. If the allure of the shadowy, cryptic, and mystical tales captivate you, then please subscribe and hang around. Chapter 8: The Weight of Guilt. The hearth in the Black Powder Tavern crackled, casting long, flickering shadows along the rugged wooden beams above. The warmth of the fire did little to thaw the cold tension that settled among the four people huddled near the bar. Nick sat slumped on a stool, a fresh glass of whiskey in one hand and an empty one in the other. His face was pale, his knuckles white as he gripped the glass like it was the only thing tethering him to this world. "This is insane," Nick muttered, shaking his head. "I don't know why I agreed to this." "You agreed," Sarah said firmly, her voice cutting through his protest. She stood beside him, arms crossed, her expression as unyielding as her tone. "Because this is the only way. You want this to end, right? You want her gone?" Nick swallowed hard and took a shaky sip of his drink. "Doesn't mean I'm thrilled about being bait." "You're not alone in this," Marcus added, leaning casually against the bar, though the tight set of his jaw betrayed his own unease. "We'll be right here, watching. The second she shows up, we'll step in." Nick glanced up at Marcus, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. "Step in how? You're not exactly Ghostbusters with proton packs. Trust us." Lily's voice was softer than her usual sharp tone. She crouched beside Nick, meeting his gaze directly. "We have what she needs. Proof of the truth. If she sees that, sees we're here to help, maybe she'll listen. Maybe we can give her what she's looking for." Nick scoffed, his laugh brittle and humorless. "And what if she doesn't? What if she decides to tear me apart anyway?" "Nobody's tearing anyone apart," Sarah snapped. She placed a firm hand on the journal tucked under her arm. "We're here to vindicate her, Nick, to lay this all to rest. But we need her to tell us where she's buried, and you're the only one who can draw her out." Nick didn't respond immediately. His gaze drifted to the amber liquid in his glass, the firelight dancing across its surface. "She hates me," he whispered hoarsely. "And honestly, I don't blame her." The weight of his confession lingered in the air. Sarah, Marcus, and Lily exchanged a glance but said nothing. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the faint whistle of wind outside. Finally, Nick drained his glass in one slug and slammed it back onto the bar. "Fine," he muttered. "Let's get this over with." Later that night, Nick sprawled on an old cot set up in one of the upstairs rooms. The tavern had gone quiet, its usual hum of patrons reduced to dead silence. The team was hidden just outside the room, crouched in the narrow hallway where the shadows swallowed them. From their position, they could hear Nick muttering drunkenly to himself, his words slurred and bitter. "Come on, you want to yell at me again, don't you?" His voice cracked, his bravado quickly dissolving into fear. "Every night, with the whispers, shadows, you win, alright? I get it. I'm sorry." Lily's hand hovered near Marcus's arm, her knuckles brushing his sleeve without thinking. "Do you think she's coming?" she whispered. Before Marcus could answer, the temperature in the hallway dropped sharply, and the hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stood on end. The team stiffened, their breath visible in the frigid air. Then came the sound, a low, mournful whisper that echoed through the space, weaving into their ears like a chilling melody. "Guilt runs deep." Sarah gripped the journal tightly, motioning for the team to stay silent as they edged closer to the door. They peered inside just as the shadows near Nick began to thicken, pulling into a shape that defied the light. The figure of a woman slowly emerged, her semi-transparent form shrouded in a tattered dress that wafted as though caught in a phantom wind. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow with sorrow and wrath. Miranda. Nick's breath hitched as her cold, spectral form loomed over him, her presence pressing down like a tangible weight. He scrambled backwards, hitting the headboard, but there was nowhere to go. You don't have to do this, he stammered, his voice shaking. I get it. You're angry, terrified. But it wasn't me. It was him, Jasper. Blame him. Miranda leaned closer, her hollow eyes narrowing. The whisper that followed was sharper, more venomous. Blood binds the sin. The guilt is yours. Lily gave Marcus and Sarah a panicked look, but Sarah held up a hand, signaling them to wait. She stepped forward first, her voice steady and commanding. "Miranda!" she called, her words cutting through the tension. "Stop! We're not your enemies." The ghost froze, her dark gaze snapping towards Sarah. For a moment, the air seemed to ripple with Miranda's anger, but her expression wavered with something else. Uncertainty. Sarah held up the journal. "We know what happened to you," she said, her voice firm but calm. "We know Jasper framed you. He lied to protect himself in the tavern, and you suffered for it. But it wasn't your fault. It never was." Miranda's form flickered, but she didn't vanish. The kneeling wail that filled the room softened, replaced by a hollow silence. Proof. Marcus stepped forward, his flashlight ready but turned off. "It's all here," he said, nodding at the journal in Sarah's hands. "Everything Jasper did to you, right down to where he hid the truth, you were innocent, and we can prove it to everyone." Miranda's spectral fingers twitched, as though reaching for the book. Nick watched her in stunned silence, his breathing ragged as she turned her focus back onto him. "Then why?" she whispered. Her voice cracked, filled with centuries of grief and betrayal. "Why hide me? Why leave me to rot?" Nick's head dropped into his hands. "Because of him," he rasped. "Because of my family. I can't take back what he did. I know that, but I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." Sarah stepped closer, her voice sharp with urgency. "Tell us, Miranda. Tell us where your body is, and we'll move it. We'll bury you somewhere worthy of your name. Somewhere no one can deny you justice." The ghost recoiled slightly before straightening, her form flickering but steadier now. Her hollow eyes locked onto Sarah, and her whispers carried a fragile, kneeing note of hope. "The woods, unmarked, east." The room shivered with the force of her final words, and Miranda's form began to dissipate into thin, swirling mist. Her anguished gaze lingered on Nick for a moment longer before she vanished completely, taking the biting cold with her. The room fell silent, save for Nick's quiet sobs. Sarah lowered the journal, exhaling shakily as Marcus and Lily moved to steady her. None of them spoke at first, the magnitude of what had just happened settling over them. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Guess we know where we're going next," he said softly. Sarah nodded, her composure returning. "We'll find her, and we'll set this right." Lily placed a hesitant hand on Nick's shoulder, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. "This isn't over, but you faced her. That's more than most people would do." Nick didn't respond, his trembling body still curled on the cot, but in the flickering light of the fire, for the first time in months, the shadows didn't seem quite so menacing.